Welcome to Feed Your Lion. I'm Dr. L.I.O.N, and I'm here to aid you in the mastery of total health, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and financial. So prepare to have your wellness tank filled up with this podcast. Hey, all you cool cats. Today we're here with Danny Tacket, and he is our local accountant, and he's going to give you some amazing tax pearls here. So, Danny, just jumping in right away, tell us a little bit about your background, your education, how you got into accounting.
Okay, I graduated from Russell High School in 1984. Karen Cook was my accounting teacher in high school, and she got me interested in it, and it came pretty natural, so I stuck with it. Went to Morehead State, got a 4-year degree in business with a major in accounting. Graduated there, started with Kelly Galloway immediately through internships, and worked at Kelly Galloway for 4 years. Passed the CPA exam in November of '88, and been doing it ever since.
Okay. So as far as you said, the CPA exam, what are like some of the common like credentialing we should look for with accountants? So if somebody's trying to find a new accountant, is there something that's better than another? I know there's several little titles or exams that you can do after.
Oh, there are many initials you can have behind your name. But obviously just being a CPA means you have the 4-year accounting degree, you have the hours in the field, and you have passed the very, very rigorous CPA exam, and you have to have 40 hours of continuing education every year and abide by the code of ethics. So, that's the major credential. And then, of course, there are many credentials and specializations you can do after that, which are very numerous, So.
Okay. So the main one they want to look for is they need to have a CPA. That's the...
Depending on their level of business depth and complexity, yes.
Okay. And then as far as like specializing, so are there specialists in more like specific types of business, real estate, like, how do they kind of break those down?
Definitely, especially in the bigger firms, you'll have corporate tax specialists, individual tax specialists, but you'll have certified business evaluation experts, people that specialize in real estate tax, which is, gets very complicated. Smaller local firms, you're more generalized because you have to know a little bit about everything, and then where to go look up the answers and find the details on the more complex things.
So how do you break down, this is kind of off topic a little bit, but the tax code, it's huge, right? Like I can't,
enormous.
like they said, I think I heard some kind of statistic one time that they said if somebody was reading like full time, like it would take so many lifetimes to even get through it all.
And before you could get through the first chapter, they'll change it again.
Yeah, exactly. So they're always I mean, how do you even know how to find that? Is that part of the training? Like, how do you even know, like, okay, this little minute part out of this huge tax code is going to be here?
Exactly. We subscribe to several different publications, PPC guides and the tax book, and our tax software has a great integrated research in it. And of course, with the internet today, you can look up almost anything
you want
from any source. The IRS has a lot of good, information on their website too. So,
Sure.
like I said, you have to know a little bit about everything and at least know where to go to find the answers, and dig deeper if it's a complex issue.
Sure. Okay. So individual, that's pretty straightforward. Individual. When you're talking about corporations, we're breaking that down, right? Like you're talking about S corps, C corps, LLCs. Kind of break that down. I know that's a huge topic all on its own, but kind of break that down a little bit for me.
Yeah, that's a 3-day class actually, but a lot of people form LLCs because it is exactly what it says. It's a limited liability entity, which shelters your personal assets. If something bad were to happen inside your LLC business, it gives you legal liability protection. You can take an LLC and do an S election off up to be an S corp, or a C election to be a C corp, or you can form an incorporated entity right out of the gate, and then elect to be an S or stay a C. The taxation on each of those is very different. A 2-member LLC, for instance, is taxed as a partnership unless you do an S election. and the taxing laws on all of them are completely different. A lot of people, especially in small businesses, form an LLC and then do an S election, put themselves on payroll, but it kind of lets you control the Social Security tax that way. You're not paying self-employment tax on all your profits from a business if you do an S election.
So you can start with an LLC, and then based on how you're gonna do your taxes, you can designate as like an S or
Correct.
C corp.
Correct. You file an election with the IRS to be taxed a certain way.
Okay. And there's also like requirements, which we're not gonna get into the nitty gritty of that. But as far as like if you're doing like a C corp or something, you have to meet so many times, right? Like there's board meetings.
Correct.
And
And
things
that's
like
why a lot of people don't do a full-blown C corp in a small business, because there are, different rules of parliament, if you will.
that. Sure.
Annual board meetings and stock certificates. And so it's a lot more structured and a lot more paperwork, if you will.
Sure.
And
So if just like a regular individual who, doesn't necessarily have a business, does everybody need an accountant? Like, is this for every average Joe on the street? They should find an accountant to help, or if it's just a simple W-2 type thing, they don't really need an accountant. Like, how do you know if you need an accountant's help?
right, I would encourage everybody to know their taxes. If you're a W-2 employee, the tax code's pretty simple and straight on that. You can dig in, and there's many free online e-filing services. I would encourage everybody to do their own if they're just a simple W-2. But the law gets murkier every year. Now you got a W-2 saying you have a child. This year you have the advance payments of the child tax credits and the expanded earned income credit and child tax credit. So it's even made the simpler returns harder. But just an average worker, no children at home, just a W-2, I would encourage them to attempt to do their own tax return. It's fairly simple. There are a lot of great softwares out there, free,
Sure.
that'll do that for you. But this year in particular, with stimulus checks and everything that's gone on, there are a lot of complexities. So we'll see, a lot of tax returns come in that just a W-2 and a child,
Yeah.
because they don't know how to figure out that child tax credit.
So if you've got any kind of deductions or things that might be write-offs or getting a little more murky, you should probably at least get advice from an accountant.
I would encourage that, yes, because there's just so many benefits you can get by
Sure.
knowing the tax law in more detail. And even if you file your own return, having someone you can consult with is a great benefit.
Absolutely. So let's get into a little bit with some secrets. Like, what are things that people really don't know when it comes to taxes? Like, or things that you could write off that people aren't doing, like deductions or letting slide by? What are some of those common things you see, like, hey, you could have saved yourself a lot of money in this area if you would have known?
Right. I think structuring things like retirement plan distributions. If you have a business, there's a hidden gem called the Augusta rule that don't go into a detail on, but it's basically a way you can rent out your home to your business for a certain number of days a year. You don't have to report the rental income, but you can deduct the rent expense. But it's got to be a legitimate meeting, of course.
I want to pause on that because I actually learned about that a couple years ago. I didn't even know you were going to bring that up, but I was like shocked because they were even telling us that you could go to your most expensive hotel in town and say, hey, how much would you charge us for, I think it was 14 days. I think that was,
Right.
But how much would you charge us to hold a meeting in the space for 14 days? And give me the big room, give me the fancy stuff. Have them like type that out for you. And you could base that on that in your
Correct.
own home, and that's like legally okay. So technically you could write off that huge like space from a home meeting.
You could, but again, like I caution everybody when you look at these rules, do it legitimately, document it, like everything else in business. If you don't have documentation, it won't survive an IRS audit. So actually have the meeting, have the board meeting there, take notes, take minutes, and document who was there. And yes, it's a totally legitimate write-off. One of the other big things, especially for real estate holders and investors, is 1031 exchanges. It lets you defer tax on the gain on the sale of a property especially if it's appreciated a lot in value over the years. Yes, you do purchase another property, but with the market like it is right now, especially selling a rental property you've held for 20 years and kicking that gain down the road and investing it in another property makes a lot of sense right now.
Absolutely. Yeah, the real estate, they use that all the time.
Correct.
I mean, because if I think it's if you're selling a property within a year, is it
It's a
30?
short-term capital gain if it's held under a year, and a long-term capital gain if it's held over a year.
I know one of them's 30%. I'm like blanking out right now.
Well, it can get up. If it's a short-term gain, then it's taxed at your ordinary income rate.
Yes.
So depending on what
Yeah.
other incomes you have, it can be taxed.
So
very
that's a
high.
big saving right there if you don't have to pay on that, if you're investing it within so many days in another piece of property.
Correct.
Yeah.
The rules get very strict, but yes.
Okay. So as far as like feeding off of that, what are some of the things, because it seems like the ultra wealthy, they're not paying taxes. They found these loopholes and these secrets that the middle class seem not to have the same level of access to. So what are some of the things you're seeing, like, and I'm not saying you're having a lot of like the ultra, top 1%ers or more, but what are some things that you're seeing that they may do different than the middle class, because the middle class is kind of getting more crunched when it comes to taxes.
Right. Yeah. The middle class don't have as many deductions, especially now that the standard deduction's been raised so high. And so there's just not a lot of ways for the W-2 employee to limit their taxes other than maxing out their 401k contributions, HSA contributions, things like that to reduce their adjusted gross income, because beyond that, it gets pretty basic for them. The wealthier clients, have the ability to hire sophisticated tax planners and attorneys and trust and estate lawyers and stuff. So they use many different vehicles, such as trust and estates, such as life insurance products and annuities and so forth, to defer their taxes and shelter their income. They know about the 1031 exchanges. They know about these other things. And they structure their income streams differently to lean more toward the things that get taxed at a lower rate, such as dividends versus just W-2 income or ordinary income.
So they're not getting the pay per hour paycheck that you're seeing from the
Correct.
middle class. They're getting income from their businesses, from investments that they've done, which you can find ways to write
Correct.
off differently so that you're not paying taxes on that.
Absolutely.
So I think that's kind of an important point to make when it comes to having different streams of income. I encourage everybody to have some kind of thing where they're not getting money just as a pay per person. Invest in some real estate, maybe try a side hustle. There's ways that you can write off things, and everybody should be working towards having multiple income streams.
I agree.
So I mean, that's going to help you with your taxes, clearly. So
And it's going to help you later on in life when you go to retire if you've got some paid off rental properties sitting there that can generate income for you in an income stream in retirement. Especially, W-2 wage earners that may not have a great pension plan. If they can generate that income stream in retirement that is now paid for when you get ready to retire. Social Security, we hope will all be there when we retire, but you don't know. So just relying on Social Security and a modest small pension may not be enough.
Right. Yeah, I'm not honestly a huge fan of like the retirement plans that you get through employment. I mean, I feel like there's ways to make a lot more money and be more successful, and I'm not so much on giving my money to other people to depend on them, and hopefully this is going up, but
Right.
that's just me. That's a story for another day, but I do think people should really work on creating things or having side projects or businesses or real estate. I mean, how many wealthy people do you know that don't have some kind of real estate investment on the side? There's not many.
Very few.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
And if they are, they're from the old school, and came from the bigger companies that had the old defined benefit pension plans, as well as maybe a thrift plan that were very lucrative back 20, 30 years ago.
Sure.
Those are disappearing.
Sure. Absolutely. So what do you think future-wise? I know you're not you can't tell me the future, but As far as what do you think's going to happen with taxes? Do you think they're going to go up in general? What do you think we're going to see like in the next 20, 30 years?
I would almost think that they have to go up, especially given the huge expenses the government's faced in the last 2 years with the coronavirus. I can't imagine that our taxes aren't going up, at least modestly. That money's got to come from somewhere.
Yep.
Whether you're a Democrat or Republican, it's it's something the government's had to do to keep our economy afloat and keep people from starving to death. They've spent a lot of money, and
Yeah.
that has to go back in to the government at some point. So I would say we'll see some modest tax increases at some point. There's a lot of talk in Washington now. We don't know what will get passed, but yeah, I believe they're going up. How much is anyone's guess.
Yeah. What do you think regards to like Social Security and stuff as we're going to run out of that one day?
I think they will continue to raise the taxability limits there, and they have every year. I think you'll see that continue to grow each and every year because it's a fund that will be exhausted if they don't.
Sure. Absolutely. Okay, so let's move into, somebody's looking for an accountant. Let's go back to there. So, what's some things people can do to prepare for their meeting with their accountant? What do you like to see? What's your like dream client when they walk in the office? Like, I know, you want somebody organized, but like, those good clients that keep good records, how does that look for you? And what can people do to help their accountant out?
Well, that certainly is a dream because knowing your numbers, knowing your business, even if you're just a personal tax return, keeping good records and at least having basic tax knowledge of what you need to supply. We try to give our clients a list every year of the basic things to bring in. But definitely in any kind of a small business or rental properties or whatever, keeping good records and documentation and organizing that for your accountant makes a humongous difference. If your accountant has to set till midnight separating your receipts and adding them all up, then he's not going to have time to ask a lot of detailed questions and dig for deductions you may not have even thought about. So keeping that personal record, I've got a client that's got 27 rental properties and brings it in a huge tote every year, and we all look at it and go, oh my God. But it's literally one of the easiest tax returns we do because it's organized and tabulated and summarized by property. And they're one of my dream clients because
Sure.
they do that detailed analysis themselves, and they know their properties. It also helps them understand what each of their properties is doing.
Absolutely.
Are we making money on this property? What's our bottom line? Are we cash flowing that property? What do we need to do differently? But if you just wait until your accountant hands you a finished product back, you don't know. You don't even know what check you have to write yet.
Yeah. No, I'm amazed. Like, I'm one of those anal retentive people. Like, I have spreadsheets for everything. It's like, I don't know. It's, my brain. I have to have it organized like that. But I'm amazed at how many people, they don't even know. They don't know what their business is making. They don't know what they're bringing in. Like, they really, truly have no understanding of what's going out and what's coming in every month. And I just, like, I don't understand that. But there's a lot of people out there like that, right?
There are a lot of people out there like that only manage their business by what's in their checking account. And, for some people that works and it's okay. They're small and as long as they have, the checking account's growing, they know they're doing okay. But to truly know your numbers and know what you need to do differently or change to maximize your profits and minimize your tax, some type of a basic accounting system is necessary. And it can be just spreadsheets, or it can be QuickBooks Online where you can collaborate with your accountant, or it can be any kind of desktop accounting software. Just you got to know your numbers if you truly want to grow your business and know what you need to do differently.
Do you see anybody really, really growing who's not paying attention to their numbers and what they're doing? I haven't.
Very few. Those are just people that can make anything work.
Yes.
There are people out there like that their personalities are geared that way. They're money makers no matter what they do, but they are rare. So if the average person doesn't have any idea what their business is doing, they're probably going to fail.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the kind of person you want to see. So if you have a good accountant and you're organized, can your accountant save you money? I already know the answer to this, but go ahead, just for the
If he
record.
can't, he's not a very good accountant or she.
Yeah.
But yes, being able to collaborate, at least once a quarter with your accountant and give them accurate numbers or let them tabulate your accurate numbers is huge, because if you don't know where you're at for the year, he can't give you any advice. You can't tax plan. Do you need to buy a piece of equipment? Does it make sense or not? If you're struggling and you're in the red, you don't know what you can do differently unless you sit down and collaborate and you've got numbers to look at, because numbers don't lie. I mean, they tell a story. So yeah, if your accountant is worth his weight, then
Yeah.
yes, if you collaborate with him or her every 2 or 3 months, then they can definitely save you money, because there's so many tax loopholes out there,
Absolutely.
that you can't take advantage of them, though, if you don't sit down and plan,
Or if you don't know them.
or if you don't know 'em.
So as far as we talked about there's different types of accounts. So if somebody's just looking, if they have like, what's the difference between like public and executive accounting and all that? Is that more business related? How?
Yeah, public accounting obviously does just that. It deals with a variety of clients from different sectors.
That
It
would
could
be like what you're doing,
That's
right?
what we do. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're a semi-small accounting firm, so we see everything from restaurants to doctors' offices to retail stores. Um, a private sector accountant is usually dealing with one set of books for one company, whether that be big or small, or they're working in a corporation
Gotcha.
and they're specializing maybe in just the corporate tax side of that business, or maybe they're in the real estate side of that business, depending what the business is.
Gotcha.
But they're dealing with one subset of books, whereas in public accounting you're dealing with many different
Types of
clients and
people.
different types of books.
Gotcha. So what are some of the biggest challenges you face as an accountant, public accountant?
I'd say the biggest challenge is keeping up with the ever-changing tax code. And of course, during COVID, it's been even trying to deal with the IRS or the state, because they're just not there.
Yeah.
And they answered 3% of phone calls last year.
Oh my goodness.
So it's made our jobs very hard, because we can't get a hold of them to fix even the smallest problem.
Wasn't there some like massive hire they're doing, or
They're hiring like 80,000 workers. But obviously that takes a long time to get them up to speed and trained,
Sure.
especially when they're not working in the offices right now.
And that's bad for us too, though, because that means they're going to nitpick the returns more, right? Like probably more audits and things as
I
well.
think that's the long-term goal, if they can get them up to speed, is I won't say more audits, but more specialized audits. They're going to be looking at certain things because they know there's low-hanging fruit for them in certain areas.
Sure.
S corporation officer compensation is one of those areas they're going to be looking at. So yeah, it's going to take them a long time to get up to speed, but once they do, their computers are programmed to look at these things, and it's going to be
Sure.
easy for them to kick them out. And they've done so much research, they know where they need to look.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know certain things trigger too. Like even last year, I got like audited for the first time. I wrote off a laser machine in my business, right? So
Right.
that was like a $200,000 just write off, and they questioned it, and they had me audit that whole
sure.
whole business, and so they do look for big write offs and things like that.
They
I know
absolutely
that.
do. Certain categories are programmed in their computer to kick out for human review. Excess meals and entertainment, or excess travel, and they compare your numbers to your prior year numbers. Did your
Yeah.
office expense go up 5 times what it's historically been? They definitely look at those things, and whether they actually audit it or just kick it out for a desk review and say, hey, send us in your documentation for these things.
Right.
You're going to see more and more and more of that, because it's becoming more automated.
Sure.
And their computers are now a little bit more modern than they used to be, so they can program them a certain way. And so that's definitely where you want to work with your accountant and make sure
Yeah.
your numbers make sense.
So as far as knowing who you can trust an accountant, I mean, are most accountants pretty reputable? Are there kind of shady accountants? Like even in the physician world, some physicians you're like, man, how did you get a medical degree, right? Is it like that in the accounting world, or is it?
Well, I think it's a little bit like that in any profession, but in this area, I think most of the accountants, CPAs are very, very great folks. They work really hard. They put in a lot of continuing education. I've worked with them all now for close to 30 years, and found very, very few that I don't like, I can get along with, that don't
Sure.
work well back and forth with other accountants. So the area is pretty blessed with a lot of good accountants right now.
Okay, all right. And how do most accountants do their fees? Is it per hour or is there no?
It's more, I won't say value billing. Most of the service industry, bookkeeping, payroll, and whatnot, is a kind of a per hour. We set a set fee for the month, and then we review that every 6 months to a year just to make sure that the time we're putting in it
It
is a
matches.
good value to the client, and
Yeah.
we're not overbilling them or underbilling them. Then you get into the tax return side, and I like to sleep well at night. So,
Sure.
if I've got 30 minutes in a tax return, I'm not billing the client $300 or $400 because that's not right.
Sure.
I think we have a humongous tax business, but it's been built because we bill what it's worth, and we don't overbill, and we treat the customers right.
Absolutely.
So we've built it really based on that.
That's all business, right? Treat people the way you'd want to be treated. Treat them like your
Exactly.
family. You would treat family, right?
Exactly. And I think this area shows that.
Yeah. So anything else you want to add regarding taxes or anything else we've talked about that you think would be valuable to any of our listeners?
Know a little bit of tax on your own, know a little bit of the law on your own. That way you can at least ask good questions of your accountant or your tax preparer. Dig in. There's a ton of easy research you can do if you're thinking about investing in rental property or starting a small business. Before you go out there and form an LLC on your own, at least consult with a CPA or someone like that, and ask a few questions first. They can give you a world of advice, and make sure it gets set up properly right out of the gate, because it's a whole lot easier to set up correctly first than it is to go back and fix it later.
Right.
And most accountants will consult free of charge. I know I will, because I want to help you get it set up right.
Right. And I'll tell you, I'll second that because, could I go out and pay, however much it is to set up my own LLC? Yes. But I always either go through an accountant or a lawyer when I'm doing that to make sure the articles are appropriate. I mean, you're talking about a new business. So you really want to make sure you've dotted all your I's and crossed all your T's when it comes to that. So I think that's extremely important as well. And my accountant and I have known for years. We can go back and forth for, hours talking about different like minute things in taxes because I know a little bit already.
Right.
And I agree you couldn't do that if you have not any basic knowledge in your own. And there's so many books and things out there to tell you. So do some research on your own. I will second that. So last but not least, how can people find you? You're in the Ashland, Kentucky area, right? What?
Yes, we're in Flatwoods actually.
Flatwoods.
1813 Argolat Road in Flatwoods. You can Google us or look at our website at andrewstacketcpa.com. Our phone number is 606-836-5335. I return every phone call I get. It's getting harder to do, especially during tax season with 2,200 clients, but you will get a phone call back from me.
Awesome. And Danny, thank you for being here and sharing all this. I hope you guys got some tax pearls from that today. Our quote of the day is, "Life is like accounting. Everything must be balanced," from unknown author.
I like that.